Okay, so good morning, everyone. Actually, it's afternoon. We are now at noon, and we will go ahead and start. Welcome, everyone. We're so glad that you have joined us for our first session of the webinar series, Making WVABLE Work for You, presented to you by Disability Rights of West Virginia and WVABLE. So my name is Roxanne Clay, and I am with the West Virginia State Treasurer's Office and the director of the WVABLE Savings Program, which stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience in West Virginia. Please also welcome Tiana Hardy and Roy Mallory with Disability Rights of West Virginia. They will serve as our moderator and co-host for today's session. For those of you who are not familiar with WVABLE, WVABLE is a savings program that allows individuals with disabilities to save and invest without jeopardizing their eligibility for federal benefit programs such as SSI or Medicaid. Today's session is titled, What is WVABLE? It is the first of 8 webinar sessions in the series that's being held every Tuesday at noon through December the 8th. If you haven't already done so, you can still register for the upcoming sessions, and we're including the webpage in our chat box. So first we want to mention some reminders. All attendee microphones have been muted to eliminate any background noise. You may include your questions in the chat box. We will save all questions until the end of the presentation. Closed captioning and sign language interpreter are available for all sessions. You can find and click closed captioning at the bottom of your screen. For the sign language interpreter, you can find the sign language interpreter's video tile, right-click, and choose Pin Video. For technical issues, please include a message in the chat box that is being monitored by our co-host and moderator. 1 hour of social work continuing ed has been approved for this session. For the attendees that are seeking social work CEs, please ensure that you do the following. Email wvable@wvsto.com if you will be seeking social work CEs. Be sure to include your full name and the email address. Also, please include your name in the chat box at this time. Toward the end of the session, a link to the survey will be included in the chat box, and that will also need to be completed. And we want to thank West Virginia University Center for Excellence in Disabilities for sponsoring the social work CEs and making these available to our attendees. Additionally, we want to take a moment and recognize and thank our co-host, Disability Rights of West Virginia, our planning committee, and all the scheduled presenters. WVABLE would also like to acknowledge and thank the WVABLE Advisory Board members for their ongoing support of WVABLE Savings Program. As you can see in the slide, the members are made up of numerous organizations and entities that serve and or advocate for people with disabilities. They play a huge role in informing individuals around the state about the program. And of course, the WVABLE program wouldn't be possible if not for the work of State Treasurer John Perdue. He supported the many West Virginia families and advocacy groups that wanted the program in our state. He, his staff, the families and groups worked hard to bring this program to West Virginia. And our state became one of the first in the nation to pass local ABLE legislation in response to the passage of the Federal ABLE Act. So with all that said, let's get started. So ABLE accounts are a game changer for people with disabilities. Previous rules have kept people with disabilities impoverished and subsequently unable to invest. So Jeremiah Underhill, he's the former legal director of Disability Rights of West Virginia. He is quoted as saying that this is perhaps the biggest advancement for people with disabilities since the passage of Americans with Disabilities Act 30 years ago. So in this picture, this was taken the day that WVABLE program launched, when our Honorable State Treasurer Perdue is congratulating 2 of the first young ladies that enrolled that day. You see Gracie standing next to her mom, Christy Black, and Christy Black is a parent advocate and advocacy specialist with the Developmental Disability Council. And Anna Smith, you may know her mom, Christina Smith. She was the director of the ARC of the Mid-Ohio Valley for many years. Christy, Christina, and another parent advocate, Michelle Norwick, they were all very active and instrumental in getting the ABLE legislation introduced in West Virginia. So WVABLE is West Virginia's ABLE plan. And throughout the presentation, I'm going to throw out some tips. The first one, you're going to hear me say WVABLE, ABLE, and stable. These are all essentially the same. WVABLE is West Virginia's ABLE plan. ABLE is referring to the federal legislation, and stable refers to the name of the account that West Virginia individuals will enroll. Also, if you have an additional monitor or a smartphone available, take a quick look at WVABLE.com website. I'll be referring to the site throughout. If there's one thing that you can take away from the presentation, it's to remember the website. It is the main hub where everything takes place. The enrollment, it includes frequently asked questions. We have a resources tab. You can refer people to the website. And after the presentation, you can go there to take a deeper dive into the information that I'm going to share with you today. And during today's webinar, you're going to learn more about what WVABLE is and why it's important. What are the benefits to owning a WVABLE savings account? Who is eligible and how do you enroll? How to make contributions and withdrawals? And what can the funds in a WVABLE account be used for? And so we're going to start out with a few pre-test questions. Please include your answers in the chat box, especially for those seeking social work continuing ed. And we're going to go over these again at the end of the presentation. So question number 1. WVABLE is a savings and investment account program that allows many eligible individuals with a disability to save up to $15,000 per year without being at risk for losing federal benefit programs like SSI and Medicaid. True or false? Okay, question number 2. The following is the percentage of eligible individuals nationwide that own an ABLE savings account. A, less than 1%, B, 5%, C, 25%, and D, more than 45%. Again, include your answers in the chat box. And question number 3. Withdrawals from an ABLE account can only be spent on qualified disability expenses. The following is not an example of a qualified disability expense. A, rent payment. B, gifting the monies to a friend. C, food. Or D, iPad. Again, we will go over those questions and answers at the end. WVABLE is based on federal legislation called the ABLE Act that was passed in 2014. The bill had the most bipartisan support of any bill that was passed by Congress. It's included in the Internal Revenue Code as a new section, 529A. The bill created savings and investments accounts for individuals with disabilities. Any money that is deposited into this account does not affect eligibility for benefit programs such as SSI and Medicaid. Now, the ABLE Act also gave the states the mechanism to create their ABLE programs. Most ABLE programs are administered through the state's treasurer's office. ABLE Act does not mandate that states have a program, so we feel very fortunate to have a program in West Virginia. Currently, there's 44 states that have ABLE plans. And here's another tip. If you were to go to Google and just put in WVABLE, WVABLE is not the first thing that comes up. It is another national plan. It's called ABLE Now. And anyone can enroll in that plan. It is a national plan. But it's important for people to know that that is not our plan here in West Virginia. I've actually had calls from people that thought it was WVABLE, and they're going through the enrollment questions and they got stuck on one. And so through further asking them some questions, it turned out they were not at WVABLE, they were actually completing the enrollment questions for ABLE Now. So it can be confusing to folks. Now, again, Virginia's plan is a national plan, meaning that anyone can join. but the West Virginia resident and taxpayer does not get the protections and benefits of our West Virginia legislation. And we'll talk more about that in another slide. It's also important to know that ABLE accounts have hybrid functionality. So structurally, they're very much like the 529 college savings accounts. Those are also administered by the West Virginia State Treasurer's Office. They're done online. With WVABLE, people enroll at WVABLE.com, and they manage their accounts at stable.com. So there's no banks. And new in 2019, the state legislation, there is a state income tax deduction for all contributions made into an ABLE account. ABLE accounts offer savings and investment options. The earnings grow tax-free. Where it's different from a 529 college savings is 529 is more restrictive and can only be spent on education-related expenses. Also, the 529 savings are meant to be used in the future, whereas ABLE monies can be used at any time, now or in the future, to pay for qualified disability expenses. ABLE accounts also have the functionality of a checking account in that it has transactional capabilities. It's relatively immediate access to the funds. Funds may be used for a broad range of disability-related expenses that, again, may occur now or in the future. They also have the functionality of a special needs trust. Prior to the ABLE Act, a special needs trust was the only way to shelter resources above the $2,000 limit. However, we know that trust does require a lawyer to establish, and they can be very expensive. So what is WVABLE? It's West Virginia's ABLE plan, administered through the West Virginia State Treasurer's Office. Our program launched February 9th of 2018, and it's offered to West Virginia residents through partnership with the Ohio Stable program. So Ohio was the first state in the nation to develop their Stable program back in 2016. And they invested a lot of monies and resources into developing their plan. And once it was established, they invited other states to partner. So there are 12 states total, including Kentucky, Georgia, South Carolina. Bottom line, West Virginia saved a lot of money by partnering with the Ohio program. And since Stable is a national plan, if the West Virginia individual was to move out of state, the plan will automatically roll over. So there's nothing else that will change about their account. They can still use their existing login and they can use their debit card. It's good to know that Stable is the largest and strongest program nationwide with the most accounts and the most account assets. So this photo here was taken the day the program launched. Treasurer Perdue and Governor Jim Justice is standing next to Denise Campbell. She is a parent and a former delegate from Elkins. She was the lead sponsor of the legislation and instrumental in getting the legislation passed in West Virginia. And Denise's son, Logan, who has autism, was among the first individuals in the state to open an account. So what are the benefits to an ABLE account? Well, they dramatically increase the ability to save. Before ABLE, individuals could only save up to $2,000 of their own money before they risk losing their health care and other benefits. But now with WVABLE, individuals can save well over $2,000 and still maintain eligibility for programs like SSI and Medicaid. They avoid having to spend down their monies in order to stay below that $2,000 limit. They can now save for an emergency fund, for the long-term goals, such as a house or a car. You know, a lot of parents worry, what will happen to their child after they pass away? So WVABLE accounts allow for the parents to start building a nest egg for their child to pay for expenses that occur now and to ensure the child will be taken care of financially for the long term. And that's the purpose of this program, to allow individuals with a disability to save more than just $2,000. So they may have the opportunity to live more independently, to plan for their future, and maintain or improve their quality of life. So let's talk about additional benefits. The account is owned by the individual with a disability, and the disability can be physical, emotional, or intellectual. Now, the individual can have only one account. This is where it is different from the 529 college savings. The ABLE accounts provide financial independence for people with disabilities. It provides new investment opportunities that they did not have before. And we mentioned the tax benefits. Just like 529 college savings, the interest that is earned on the investments grow tax-free, and the earnings remain tax-free as long as ABLE funds are spent on qualified disability expenses. And again, new as of 2019, state tax deduction for contributions made to ABLE accounts by the West Virginia state resident owner or taxpayer, and that's dollar for dollar. So when people ask, just make sure that you provide this update that people can now claim that contribution. So who is eligible? You want to think of this in terms of anyone with a disability, and here's another tip. So at the WVABLE.com website, there is an eligibility quiz. It is a quick series of yes or no questions that will tell you if you're eligible to open an account. However, sometimes people run into roadblocks with the quiz and then they think they're not eligible. So I always like to recommend that when they're at the eligibility quiz, they click more information that's right below. That takes them to the full page that goes through more detailed information about the eligibility requirements. Also, the eligibility piece is one of the first questions that people are asked during the online enrollment. So the requirements to be eligible for WVABLE includes 1, they are a West Virginia resident. 2, the onset of the disability occurred prior to age 26. So this would include the symptoms. So the onset of the symptoms will have had to have occurred prior to age 26. Also, you do not have to open the account before age 26. For example, you could have someone that has developed a mental illness at age 25, but they were not diagnosed until age 30 and did not open their stable account until age 35. And then we have one of the following criteria. First, they're eligible or entitled to receive SSI or SSDI due to their disability or blindness. So just a side note, more than half of the account owners actually fall in this category. And this does not mean that you have to be currently receiving SSI or SSDI. The individual or family could be making too much money and then they exceed the income limits. However, they still qualify for an ABLE account if they are eligible or entitled to receive SSI, SSDI due to their disability. This way, they can receive the other benefits that we talked about, including the tax benefits. So if they're not eligible or entitled to receive SSI or SSD, or they're not sure, perhaps they submitted an application and they haven't received a response yet, they can go to the next criteria. Do they have a condition that's listed on Social Security Administration's list of compassionate allowances condition? This is that if you go to WVABLE.com website and you go to the eligibility page, this list is actually hyperlinked so that if you click on that, it's going to take you to SSI's website or SSA's website, and it will list out these the list of compassionate allowances condition. And you may not know this, I didn't know this before. Primarily, you're going to see certain cancers, adult brain disorders, a number of rare disorders that affect children on this list. And also another side tip, if you haven't visited the list recently, it was actually updated by SSA to include some additional conditions. And then the last criteria is self-certification. And what that means is that you have a written diagnosis by a physician of a physical or mental impairment that causes marked or severe functional limitations, and that's lasted or expected to last at least 1 year. So this is the same standard that Social Security uses for SSI and SSDI determinations. This does not have to be a physician that diagnosed you. It can be your current treating physician. And note, you do not have to provide the written diagnosis at the time of enrollment. However, you do need to keep it on hand in case it's ever requested. So know that one of the final steps that you're going to take at the end of the enrollment is you will self-certify that the information that you provided is accurate and truthful. So we always recommend that you start an audit file in case the information is ever needed. You know, this is an IRS program, so it is to their purview to audit accounts. Additionally, Social Security may request information. So let's talk about enrollment. How do folks enroll? So again, everything is done online at WVABLE.com. There is no paper application. It is similar to an online checking account. You do need an email address to enroll, and you're going to be creating a username and password. So when you're at the website, you'll see the blocks for open the account. Now, when you click on that, it takes you to stable.com, and this is correct. Sometimes I get phone calls from folks saying, well, I'm at WVABLE and I clicked it to enroll, but now I'm at Stable. Of course, they haven't heard a presentation, so they're just not sure. That is correct. And again, there's no banks involved, so the banks aren't typically familiar about WVABLE. The enrollment is fairly quick and easy. You can kind of set aside about 20 minutes, but most often it takes less than that. And there is a $50 minimum deposit required to open the account. All future deposits can be as little as $1. And for folks that aren't real comfortable with online banking, we would recommend that first $50 payment be mailed to Stable P.O. Box. That's out of Florida. The final screen after the enrollment will be a screen that reads, you know, successful enrollment, and then it will include the beneficiary name and the account number. So it's those two that you're going to enter in the memo section of the check. We actually have envelopes that's already addressed to Stable that we can provide. You can simply send me an email to wvable@wvsto.com, and I'll be happy to mail you a batch. But again, it's important that folks do make the deposit within the first couple weeks of enrollment. Otherwise, eventually the account will go dormant, and then you don't want to have to start the process over again. So as far as who completes the enrollment, the Federal ABLE Act requires the person opening the account to be either one, the individual with a disability or the beneficiary, or if the individual is not able to open and manage the account, for example, a child or an adult with a disability who's not able or willing to enroll and manage the account, the Act allows for the authorized legal representative to do so. And the authorized legal representative is defined by law as one of the following: parent, a guardian or conservator, that's a power of attorney. And the power of attorney can be anyone that's willing to serve in this capacity on behalf of the beneficiary, as long as the beneficiary has the capacity to identify a power of attorney. A power of attorney is limited to the WVABLE account, and the forms are available at the WVABLE.com website and at the resources tab. Now, I do want to throw something in there that very recently, late last Thursday, the Treasury actually finalized their regulations for ABLE accounts. So it's very important, and of course it was 176 pages, so it's a lot to go through, but we will be seeing some changes as it relates to the enrollment and the authorized legal representative. So it's very important that you sign up to receive the quarterly newsletter so that you can stay up to date with any changes. We will include the changes and updates in our newsletter as soon as the attorneys have had a chance to review, and we have some upcoming meetings scheduled with some other state national partners to also discuss this. But in the meantime, you know, this is the information as far as who can enroll and manage the accounts on behalf of the beneficiary. Now, this picture here, again, it was taken the day the program launched. Christy Black with her daughter Gracie, and Doug Jackson from our Ohio Stable program is giving Gracie a high five. It was a good day. So how do you fund your account? Well, it's very easy. You can link a checking or savings account, and this is to make transfers as needed. It's called electronic funds transfer. Now, for those that are comfortable and familiar with online banking, they're going to be comfortable with that. You can do this at the time of enrollment, or you can log back in 2 weeks, 2 months after, and you can request to link a checking or savings. In order to do that, you're going to include the checking or savings account number, the bank number, and the bank routing number. But for any electronic funds transfer, there will be a micro deposit verification that's conducted by the bank. So you want to be sure to complete this so that the accounts can be linked and so that you can make contributions. I will tell you this, that notices from Stable will come to you from their email address, stable.com. Some of those emails will land in the junk folder for the individuals, so be sure that especially through the beginning of this process, when everything is being established, that you check your spam folders, your junk folders, and just kind of be on the lookout for any emails from Stable. The other thing is you can certainly log back into your Stable account and look to see if you've gotten any notifications from Stable. That provides any direction or guidance on any action that's needed on your behalf in order to finalize the enrollment process. So in addition to EFT, the other way to make a deposit is via check, and we've already talked about that. Again, you just include the name of the account owner and the beneficiary's name in the memo section of the check. This is the recommended method to make that initial $50 deposit. A couple quick notes though. Whenever you're making a contribution via the EFT, always allow about 3 business days for those monies to hit. And we'll talk about the withdrawal piece too in a few minutes, and it's the same thing. Always allow about up to 3 business days for those online banking transactions to be completed. Now, a third method of funding your account that's not on the PowerPoint is the direct deposit. Where payroll monies can be automatically deducted and deposited into the WVABLE account. This can be done by the beneficiary that is working, or perhaps by the parent who wants to contribute a portion of their check on an ongoing basis. The Stable Program Manager has the forms to set this up. Of course, you can always send me an email and I can send the form to you as well. So at this point, you might be wondering how much money can be deposited into the WVABLE accounts. So if the individual is not employed, the maximum is $15,000 per year from all sources. So this includes contributions from family, friends, from businesses, an employer, a trust fund, a legal entity. It also can include monies from stimulus payments that we've received, and hopefully there's another batch that's coming out, from rollovers from a 529 college savings. Now, if the beneficiary is employed, he or she may contribute up to an additional $12,490 of employment earnings to an account, bringing the total maximum yearly contribution limit for employed beneficiaries to $27,490 per account. And then the lifetime limit includes a balance limit of $482,000. Now this amount is a little bit more flexible in that you can hit the limit, you can spend it down, and then replenish with more contributions. The system does reject excess contributions, so you don't have to keep track of your own contributions. Stable will do it for you. So if you contribute too much, Stable will kick it out. 15,000 contribution limit. So your balance can grow higher than this number. For example, if you have invested some of your monies in the investment options and you are earning monies from that. The annual contribution limit is a hard stop though. Once you've put in 15,000, you're done for the year and cannot contribute any more than that, even if you spend down your balance to below 15,000. So another little tip, the 15,000 is actually tied to the gift tax limit. So it typically is adjusted every 2 years. The last increase was to 15,000 was in 2018. Again, this is another update that we would include in our quarterly newsletters when that amount changes. So next, I just want to quickly mention the e-gift options. Within the Stable account, there is a tool for e-gift, and it compares to a GoFundMe account it creates, and what you do is the individual that's managing the account or the beneficiary, they're going to go in and they're going to create an e-gift event. For example, if there's a birthday or a holiday, graduation, or if there's a special need such as glasses or maybe a hearing aid, you can set it up to where it will send an email notification for this special event to family and friends. When the family or friends receive that email, it's going to include a link to where they can make a contribution online, and the contribution goes directly to the beneficiary stable account. So again, the gifts will not affect the benefits. One example that I've heard about in years past is, grandparents, they were always afraid to give cash monies to your grandchild, afraid it was going to cause them to be in excess of that $2,000 limit. Well, this way, the money's never land in the hands of the beneficiary. It goes straight from the individual giving the gift into the ABLE account. And we know that once in the ABLE account, those monies are sheltered resource. And the other benefit to the e-gift is it offers record-keeping options, and the system will track the contribution for sending thank you notes. So after one has completed the questions of the online application that's related to determining eligibility, how to fund the account, the next question is choosing the investment options. So a quick note, the staff here at the Treasurer's Office, we cannot provide advice on the investment options. However, there is information included on our website. So if you're at the home page, you scroll to the very bottom, and in the second column, you'll see savings and investments. If you click on that, it's going to take you to a full page that has a lot more detailed information about the investment piece. And of course, you can seek financial advice from a financial or investment advisor of your choosing. But what you want to know is there are 4 investment options to choose from. And they are from the Vanguard mutual fund options. They range from aggressive to conservative. So this means that you're investing in the stock market, and when the market is up, you can earn money, but there are risks in that when the market is down, you can lose money. So the reminder is the benefit of the 529A account is that you do not pay taxes on the interest that's earned. And you also want to know that the bank safe option, it is just like a savings account. The earnings are very low, but it's 100% FDIC insured, where the principal is protected. So when you're doing the enrollment, you can split up the distributions where you designate a certain percentage to more than one option, or you can designate 100% in just one option. As long as 100% of the funds are allocated, then you can move on to the next enrollment question. Now you can make changes to your investment options at any time. However, for the monies that are already invested, you're limited to redirect those funds to twice per calendar year. So you have your money in your account, and now you want to know, how do you spend it? So unlike a college savings, the 529 plan, as soon as the monies are put into these accounts, the monies are available for you. Again, just allow just a few days for the withdrawals to be made. That's just a little side note. The monies can be used, or you can save the monies for the long term, or parents can build the accounts to use for basic life needs for the child. So the legislation has defined what qualifies as a disability-related expense. So the withdrawals must be used on what we call qualified disability expenses. In that, first, it must relate to the disability, and it must maintain or improve the health, independence, or quality of life. So note that the legislation is very broad in the interpretation of what qualifies. So there's not a true list. That was on purpose so that it would not be restrictive. And so I always like to suggest to people to think of it in terms of what would not qualify. For example, gifting the monies, gambling, tobacco and alcohol. I mean, those would be examples of what would not qualify. Examples of what does qualify as a disability-related expense is housing and rent, education, hiring a caregiver to help with transportation, food that was actually clarified by Social Security in March of this year, that it actually is under the category of a basic living expense. An expense may include an iPad for the child with autism for assistive technology use, going to the movies as it lends to building or maintaining the quality of life, anything that benefits the child or the adult with a disability, and again, it must relate to the disability and it helps to maintain or improve the health, independence, or quality of life. So another important note is when you do spend from the account, you want to make sure that you keep documentation of what the monies were spent for. So keep your receipts, and you can write notes on the receipts on what the monies were spent for. Again, this is an IRS program, and they regulate it since they're allowing for tax-free earnings. So be sure you keep an audit trail in case the IRS or Social Security were to audit the records. So how do you get the money out of your account? Well, first know there are no fees and there is no limit set on making withdrawals. So first, we talked about the checking or savings, that if you had linked a checking or savings to make a contribution to the stable account, this is also how you can make withdrawals. So once the account is linked, you can move monies from the stable account back over to that checking or savings. Again, be sure that you allow about 3 business days for those monies to hit. You can also pay with a third-party check. It's like an online bill pay. So we would highly recommend this as it keeps records for what you're spending. And in the case when you're paying rent, you want to ensure that the monies actually leave your hands the same calendar month in which the monies were withdrawn. So if you choose third-party check, the monies never actually touch your hands. The check goes straight from the stable account to the lender or the landlord. And then the third way to make withdrawals is the stable card. They are very convenient for the individual that plans to use the monies more frequently, for example, to pay for everyday living expenses. So briefly, they function like a loadable prepaid debit card. The card can be swiped wherever Visa is accepted. They do not come automatic. It's important for folks to know that. Again, I receive phone calls from folks, and one lady in particular, she said, well, I enrolled in my stable account 2 weeks ago, but I never received the stable preloadable debit card. And so that's because they don't come automatic. It is something that you do have to elect to receive. When you go to WVABLE website and you go to the resources tab, you'll see the option to enroll in a stable debit card. So once you've enrolled in the stable account, then you can enroll to receive the stable card. Now, I'll throw in another tip. To learn more about the stable card, in next week's presentation, we have Thomas Hatch from the Ohio Stable Program that's going to give a little bit more insights into the stable card. It's just really important that people know that it's an option. A lot of people don't. I believe at this point we have about 35% of WVABLE account owners that actually use the stable card. So it's really underutilized, but it's a great benefit for those that want to make more frequent transactions from their stable account. So for individuals that receive SSI, supplemental security income, it's important that they know that SSA does set the following restrictions. Again, we know that they cannot have more than $2,000 in savings unless it's in an ABLE account. And the balances in an ABLE account that are over $100,000 do count as a resource when determining eligibility. Now, SSI check will only be suspended, not terminated. They will be re-eligible once the amount is below $100,000. So long-term planning is needed. And I know that sounds like a lot of money, but as these ABLE accounts age, the account balances are going to grow, especially if people are making the maximum contributions each year. So it's just important just to be aware for the SSI recipient of this $100,000 mark. The second is housing-related expenses, for example, rent. Those amounts must be paid in the same calendar month in which the monies were withdrawn. Otherwise, the monies are considered a resource. For example, if you make a withdrawal on the 25th to pay for rent, and the monies actually don't leave your hands until the following month on the 3rd. Well, the monies that are in your hands on the 3rd actually do count as a resource for that calendar month. So that's kind of back to that third-party bill pay. That's why we would recommend that if you're paying for rent or housing-related expenses, there's a great way to make that withdrawal via a third-party check, and you don't have to worry about this requirement here. And then the third is that wages that are earned by a beneficiary are still counted as income in determining eligibility, even if the contributions from the income are made into a stable account. So we're often asked, what happens if the beneficiary passes away? So it's important to know that there is no designated beneficiary upon death. So when you're completing the enrollment application, you're not designating a beneficiary to receive the monies upon death. The funds will go into the individual's estate. So if the beneficiary does not have a will, then the account will go through the normal probate process. And that is a reason why it would be important to have a will. Another question that we receive is, can the funds be used for funeral and burial expenses? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Now, this is another update from the legislation that passed in West Virginia in 2019. That Medicaid will not file a claim against the WVABLE account for any medical expenses that were paid on behalf of the beneficiary. Now, this was standard internal policy, but now it's actually state law. So West Virginia was one of the first states in the country to pass this legislation in which there cannot be a Medicaid clawback. However, there is an exception. If the expenses were paid for the individual that's living in a nursing home or a community-based waiver program and is over the age of 55. And this is as per the West Virginia Estate Recovery Program. So to learn more about that, you can go to wvrecovery.com and it provides more details. But with that said, while this applies to all types of bank accounts, able and non-able, and it applies to all of us once we reach 55, and if we're living in a nursing home or community-based waiver program. But there are some added protections that you want to know about for WVABLE accounts. First, all outstanding bills for qualified disability expenses are paid out. You can deduct the Medicaid buy-in premiums that you paid, and then you can pay for funeral and burial expenses. And after that is all paid out, then the West Virginia Estate Recovery actually kicks in. So how much does it cost to own a stable account? Well, the cost is minimal. There is a monthly maintenance fee of $3.50. It actually starts the day the account is open, and so that equates to $42 annually. This amount is charged by the program manager in Florida, and it helps to cover their costs for the online account website and their customer service department. It's automatically debited from the account. And one thing that I will add is our friends in Ohio, they're always doing their best to try to reduce the cost to the cost to the beneficiary and increase the product, the benefits of the product, and the ease of use for the online accounts. And so I can absolutely see that this $3.50 would be reduced. I don't see it ever increasing. As far as the asset-based fees, so for any monies that are actually invested, the earnings portion, there is an asset-based fee between 0.19% and 0.33%. And this is very comparable to the college savings. So we talked a little about special needs trusts earlier. And we do have a spreadsheet that goes into more detail about the similarities and differences between able and special needs trusts. And I'm going to throw this in there. We actually have a session as part of our webinar series that's dedicated to providing more information about special needs trust and how they can work together with an able account. So our presenter is an attorney out of Huntington who specializes in estate planning, and that presentation is on November the 17th and is titled Preparing for Your Future, special needs trust and WVABLE, we do get quite a decent amount of questions about trust. So I would highly recommend that anyone that's participating today, or if you know of anyone else that's looking at trusts, and this is an excellent opportunity to learn more, but then to also have the opportunity to ask questions to an experienced professional. And again, that session is November the 17th. But as far as this slide goes, I think the takeaway is, we know that special needs trust, you work through an attorney, they are expensive. However, trusts can accept unlimited cash and non-cash assets like cars, homes, etc. However, they cannot be used to pay for basic living expenses like food and housing. However, trusts can be written or amended so that distributions can be made to a stable account. So once it's in the stable account, we know that the monies can then be used to pay for basic living expenses. And then as far as the unique benefits of a stable account, we know that they're much more flexible. They have broader spending power, housing and food, for example. There is a West Virginia state tax deduction for all contributions made to WVABLE by the West Virginia taxpayer. There's no federal or state income tax on the earnings, and it can be opened, owned, and managed by the individual with the disabilities, and the monies can be accessed online. So the big takeaway is they're complementary tools. They can be used together for the benefit of the beneficiary. Just make sure that you work with an experienced attorney that's knowledgeable and experienced in writing trusts, but also knowledgeable about ABLE accounts. So we've reviewed all there is to know about eligibility, about enrollment, how to deposit and make withdrawals from the account. So what about support for maintaining the account? So another side note is the staff here at the Treasurer's Office, we do not have access to any of the accounts. So we're not able to answer account-related questions. However, Stable, a program manager, they have a customer service line, and they are located in Florida. They have a dedicated staff that can provide customer service support. So the number you see to the left of your screen there is the 1-800 number for Stable. They are available Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. For example, if you're locked out of your account and you need a quick account balance, or you're wanting to check on a withdrawal that you have made through the electronic funds transfer, if you need to create a new username password, those would be good examples of reaching out to the Stable customer service line. West Virginia Treasurer's Office, that number there, 304-340-5050, that rings directly to me. That email address, wvable@wvsto.com, again, that also comes directly to me. So I can help answer any questions about the program. I do occasionally get calls or questions from people about the enrollment piece, and I can certainly help facilitate that. Sometimes I've been known to even call Stable to help get some guidance, on behalf of the individual that's calling, and I'm more than happy to do that. But as mentioned before, we do a lot of outreach. So as the webinar today, it's the first in our series, but if you are part of an organization or a provider, a state agency, or a group that serves and or advocates for individuals with disability, and you want to bring this webinar to individuals within your office, to your colleagues, or even you want to set something up for the individuals and families that you serve, just reach out to me, and I'm more than happy to schedule a presentation. And those are now being done via webinar, which I have found it's actually been beneficial, because I feel like we're able to reach more individuals via this electronic format, as opposed to folks having to arrange for transportation or childcare. This way they can just hop on their computer and just join at their convenience and from the comfort of their home. And the last piece is for WVABLE.com. I mentioned that at the beginning. It's the hub of where people can find lots of program information, frequently asked questions, resources tab. Everything we covered today, is included at the website, where people can actually also go to enroll. So what are some ways that you can stay connected to WVABLE? And, you know, we rely on, there's only one staff member at the treasurer's office, which is myself, that works for the WVABLE program. So we heavily rely on helping to spread the message, helping to spread the word, informing individuals that are eligible about WVABLE. That's one of the reasons why I will tell you one of the questions, and I'll give you the answer now, as far as the statistic about the percentage of individuals that are eligible that actually own an ABLE account nationwide. And the answer to that is less than 1%. And so that's nationwide. However, in West Virginia, that number is even lower than less than 1%. So we know that people are still learning. Some people still haven't heard about WVABLE, about what it is, about the opportunities. And then maybe sometimes people have heard about it, they just don't know much about it. They don't necessarily trust it, because all these years they've been told that they cannot save more than $2,000 without being at risk for losing their benefits, such as SSI and Medicaid. So we depend on organizations and individuals that work with those that are eligible. They trust you. You're the one that's helping to inform them. So we appreciate your efforts in helping to spread the word. We have a Facebook page, WVABLE. So if you're not already following, you can go there now and follow that page. We post updates about the program, about upcoming events. Feel free to share those. We also post testimonials, and if there's any relative national articles that include valuable information about ABLE program in general, we will share those as well. But we would ask that you share those and help us to spread the word. The other is the newsletter. It's published quarterly. And again, it's an excellent way to stay connected and learn more about WVABLE. That's where we're going to include updates about our program managers, stable, any legislative updates, and any enhancements, any national policies through Social Security. And I already mentioned the IRS has finalized their regulations for ABLE accounts. So we will be including the newsletter updates about that in our newsletters moving forward. And we're really happy and excited that we are offering testimonials too. We're including those in our newsletters and online. There is nothing that speaks better to how ABLE accounts are working for individuals than for people to hear it firsthand from those that own an account or the families that own. And so that's an open invitation for individuals to submit their testimonial to us as well, so we can help share your experiences. So now, looks like we're right at 53 minutes in. Now we have time for question and answers. And do we have any questions in the chat box?
Roxanne, we do have one question in the Q&A. An individual would like to know if the recording will be available to those who were unable to participate today.
So yes, we do plan to have the recordings available. We don't have a turnaround time as to when they will be available. However, you can send an email to wvable@wvsto.com, and I can certainly communicate with you about that and provide the link once it's been available. That's something else too that we will likely post on our Facebook page when they're available, and we'll provide the link as well.
And also we have a comment in the chat from Russ Dean. He made a comment that it doesn't appear as though he's eligible at this time. He may be someone that you want to reach out to after.
Okay, and I see that, Russ. So my first thought is, if you've taken the eligibility quiz at the WVABLE.com website, don't necessarily go by just what the quiz is telling you. Go down to where it reads more information and click on that tab, and it's going to take you to a full page that provides a lot more information about eligibility. The other piece is, if you're still unclear, send me an email or just give me a call and I can assist you as well.
And there are no other questions at this time, Roxanne.
Okay. So just to finish up, I want to include a few last minute reminders. And this is important for those that are seeking social work continuing ed. Please be sure, if you haven't already done so, email wvable@wvsto.com if you are seeking social work continuing ed. Include your name and email address. Also, if you haven't already done so, be sure that your full name is included in the chat box. We have to provide those records as part of those seeking social work CEs. And the last is, at this point, Roy Mallory, he has included in the chat box a link to the survey. The link is included there. Please click on the link and complete the survey, and this is required in order to receive social work continuing ed. So all those things are very important. We want to make sure that for those of you seeking social work continuing ed, that first we know that indeed you are, because we have quite a bit of participants that are attending, and then of course that the rest of it has been completed in order for you to receive credit. So the last thing I want to mention is that each registered attendee will receive a WVABLE information packet that includes program information and useful items. And the items that we have, it includes the contact information for both WVABLE and Stable customer service. I mentioned the customer service line before, and so a lot of our promotional merchandise, for example, our pens, it includes the 1-800 number. So we work hard to make sure that all the items that we have, number one, they're very useful, such as the cleansing cloth to clean glasses, a jar opener, but also that they include the contact information so that you don't have to go digging, when you're wanting information. So first, WVABLE.com, and then our number here at the Treasurer's Office for information about the program. But then once you've enrolled and you need customer support as it relates to your account, you would reach out to Stable at that 1-800 customer service line. So we have those included on our promotional merchandise, and those will be included in your packet. Additionally, in your packet, you're going to receive some program information about Disability Rights of West Virginia, who has also sponsored this webinar series. So the packets will be mailed to the addresses that each of you provided during registration, but please allow up to 2 weeks, possibly 3, to receive your mailing. Now, we hope to see you next Tuesday at noon for our second session in the series. It's titled WVABLE, Easy to Enroll, Easy to Use, and it's October the 13th at noon. It will be presented by Thomas Hatch of the Ohio Stable Program. This session will cover the step-by-step process of enrolling in a WVABLE Stable account and provide tips on how to make the process as smooth as possible. And he will also cover the most common methods of spending from the account and include a highlight of the Stable debit card. It's the program's loadable Visa card. So if we don't have any more questions, it's been a pleasure to have you all with us today. And again, thank you to Disability Rights for co-sponsoring today's session and webinar series. And thanks to our WVABLE Advisory Board for helping to spread the word. Thanks to each of you for joining us. And everybody stay safe and have a great rest of your day. And hopefully we'll see you next Tuesday.